My wife forbade me from her parents' anniversary party. Hours later, my wife's sister posted a photo with the caption, "Family only." I hit like and commented, "Congrats! Mortgage and taxes are all yours now." 6 minutes later, the post was gone, and 30 missed calls appeared. The notification lit up my phone at 8:14 p.m. on a Saturday evening in March. I was standing in our kitchen, though calling it our kitchen had started to feel like a lie somewhere along the way, holding a bottle of beer I hadn't yet opened, staring out the window at a city that looked like it belonged to someone else's life. The apartment was quiet in that specific way spaces become when you've been deliberately excluded from something important. Not peaceful, but hollow, like a bell that's been muffled before it could ring. Jessica Chen tagged you in a photo. I should have ignored it. Should have set the phone down, twisted the cap off that beer, and found something mindless to watch until sleep mercifully arrived. Should have done literally anything except what I did next, which was unlock my phone and open Instagram with the kind of masochistic curiosity that's destroyed better men than me. But I didn't ignore it. Because even after 4 years of marriage to Maya, even after becoming what I thought was a permanent fixture in the Chen family constellation, even after countless dinners where her mother Linda would hold my hand and whisper, "You're the son we never had," while her father David would clap my shoulder and talk about legacy and continuity. Even after all of that, I apparently still needed proof that I mattered. The photo loaded in fragments, the way images do when your Wi-Fi is strong but your heart is preparing for impact. They were arranged on the Chen family's back deck, the one David had rebuilt 2 summers ago, with composite materials that cost more than my first car, and lighting that made everything look like a magazine spread. 40 people, maybe more, all dressed in that specific kind of casual elegance that screams money without saying a word. Linda and David at the center, 35 years married as of today, surrounded by their children and grandchildren and the extended network of cousins and family friends who'd known Maya since she was small. And Maya, my wife, standing between her parents with one hand on her mother's shoulder, wearing the green dress she'd bought specifically for tonight, the one that made her eyes look like sea glass. She was smiling that smile she reserves for important moments, the one that transforms her entire face. The one I fell in love with 6 years ago when she was arguing with a museum docent about whether photography was allowed in the contemporary wing. The caption made my chest tighten in a way that felt almost physical. 30 years of love, commitment, and family. Celebrating the people who matter most. Family only. Chen 30 years now family, first hard blessed. The only. I read those two words 5 times, like repetition might change their meaning, like maybe I'd misunderstood something fundamental about the English language in the past 32 years of using it. Like maybe there was some alternate interpretation that didn't feel like being punched while you were already down. There wasn't. The thing is, I'd known I wasn't invited. Maya had told me 4 days ago, on Tuesday evening while we were getting ready for bed, mentioned it with the same casual tone she used to discuss which brand of paper towels we should buy or whether we needed more coffee. So about Saturday, it's just going to be blood family at my parents' place. Nothing personal, that they just want to keep the numbers manageable. I'd been brushing my teeth. I remember that detail with perfect clarity because I was staring at myself in the mirror when she said it, watching my own face process the information, seeing the exact moment when confusion became understanding became something that tasted like metal. Blood family, I'd said after rinsing my mouth, testing the phrase like it was evidence in a case I was building. Am I not family and we're married? She'd sighed then. That particular sigh she'd developed over the past year. The one that said I was making things difficult, that I was creating problems where none existed, that I was somehow failing to grasp something obvious to everyone else. You know what I mean, Marcus. Parents, siblings, grandkids, direct bloodline, they're keeping it really intimate. There will be plenty of other celebrations where everyone's included. I'm your husband. I know that. She'd come out of the bathroom then, and I could see the defensiveness forming in her posture, in the set of her shoulders. It's one party, one afternoon. Can we not turn this into a thing? And because I'd been trying to be reasonable, because I'd been trying to be the kind of husband who doesn't make everything about himself, because 4 years of marriage had taught me that sometimes you have to pick your battles carefully, I'd said it was fine. I'd said I understood. I'd kissed her goodbye this afternoon when she left at 2 o'clock to help set up. Watched her drive away in the car her parents had helped us buy, a detail that suddenly felt more significant than it had this morning. But seeing it spelled out like that in a public Instagram post with 78 likes already accumulating, with comments from relatives and family friends and Maya's college roommate, all saying how beautiful everyone looked, how wonderful the celebration was. Family only. As if I was something else, someone else. A guest who'd overstayed his welcome. A contractor hired for a specific job who shouldn't expect to be invited to dinner once the work was done. My thumb hovered over the screen. The rational part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through engineering school and helped me build a respectable career and generally kept me from catastrophically stupid decisions, was sending up warning flares. Don't engage, it whispered. Put the phone down. Sleep on this. Be mature. But there was another part of my brain, a part that had been getting progressively louder over the past 18 months every time Maya made a decision without consulting me, every time her family treated me like I was auxiliary equipment rather than integral structure, every time I felt myself standing outside circles I'd been promised I could join. That part had different ideas. That part was done. Finished, over it. That part hit the like button. It felt viscerally satisfying in that immediate, dangerous way that revenge always feels before you've had time to calculate consequences. Just a simple tap of my thumb, a tiny heart appearing beneath a photo that announced I wasn't family enough, my tacit agreement with a statement designed to exclude me. But I wasn't finished, because liking it felt insufficient somehow, too subtle, too easy to miss or misinterpret as accidental. I tapped the comment field. My fingers moved before the rational part of my brain could fully intervene, typing words that felt like they'd been accumulating pressure for months, maybe years, just waiting for the right valve to release through. Congrats! Mortgage and taxes are all yours now. Send. For exactly 6 seconds, I felt powerful, vindicated, like I'd finally spoken a truth that needed speaking, had finally pushed back against the slow erosion of my place in a family that had promised I belonged. Then reality arrived, like cold water. What had I just done? I stared at my comment sitting there beneath the photo like an unexploded bomb. The meaning was clear enough if you had context, and oh, the Chens had context. They had all the context in the world. Because what Jessica's carefully curated caption didn't mention, what the post family photo didn't show, was the foundation that picture was built on, literally and financially. The Chen family home, the one in the photograph with its expensive deck and professional landscaping, and the kitchen renovation that had cost what some people pay for college, that home wasn't fully paid for. The mortgage still had 22 years remaining on it. And 3.5 years ago, when David Chen's medical practice had hit a rough patch and the bank had started making concerned noises about payment schedules, it was my name that went on the refinancing documents. My credit score, my income verification, my signature binding me legally and financially to a property I would never inherit, for a family that apparently didn't consider me family enough to attend their celebrations. Just temporary, David had said, gripping both my shoulders in that study that smelled like leather and expensive cigars. Just until we get things sorted out. Your family, Marcus. This is what family does for each other. And the property taxes. God, the property taxes. $15,000 annually on a house in that neighborhood, coming out of my account every quarter like clockwork for 42 months straight. Maya had assured me it was temporary, that her parents would start reimbursing us once some investments matured, once the practice stabilized, once the planets aligned, or whatever financial mysticism was required for wealthy people to pay their own bills. 42 months later, those planets remained stubbornly misaligned. I'd done the math once during a bout of insomnia about 6 months ago, when the numbers wouldn't stop running through my head like stock tickers in my peripheral vision. Between the monthly mortgage payments I'd been covering and the property taxes and the various emergency loans that had become regular occurrences. 1,000 here for Jessica's wedding photographer, 500 there for car repairs. That time I'd covered 3 months of David's malpractice insurance premiums because the payment was tied up in escrow. I'd sunk approximately $156,000 into the Chen family finances. $156,000 for a family that wouldn't include me in a photograph celebrating themselves. My phone stayed silent for exactly 6 minutes. I know because I watched the clock in the corner of the screen counting seconds like a condemned man watching the countdown to his own execution. That beer still unopened in my other hand. My heart doing something complicated in my chest that felt like dread and liberation having a knife fight. 6 minutes while my comment sat there, visible to everyone who'd viewed the post. 6 minutes while Jessica presumably saw the notification, read the words, processed their meaning. 6 minutes while the bomb I'd thrown finally inevitably detonated. Then the post vanished. Just gone, wiped from existence like it had never been posted. No photo, no caption, no evidence of the perfect family gathering that had been so important. I couldn't be part of it. And then, chaos. My phone erupted. Call after call after call, the vibrations so continuous the device started sliding across the counter like it had achieved sentience and was trying to escape the incoming storm. Maya calling, Linda Chen calling, Maya calling, David Chen calling, Maya calling, Jessica Chen calling, Maya calling. 30 calls in 12 minutes. 30 desperate attempts to reach me, to control the situation, to stuff the truth back into whatever expensive box they'd been keeping it in. I answered none of them. Instead, I finally opened that beer and walked to the living room window, looking out over a city that suddenly felt more mine than the marriage I'd been trying to save for the past 18 months. The sky had that deep purple quality that happens right after sunset, before true darkness settles in. Somewhere out there, in a house I was financing, a party I'd been explicitly excluded from was probably imploding in real time. My phone kept ringing. I took a long drink and thought about the chain of choices that had led me here, to this moment, to this window, to watching my marriage potentially disintegrate via missed calls and deleted social media posts. The strange thing was, I wasn't sure I regretted it. Not yet, anyway. The beer was half finished when the calls finally stopped around 9:30, replaced by a tsunami of text messages that came through in waves, each one more frantic than the last. Maya. What the hell? Marcus, Maya. What did you do, Maya? Call me right now. Maya. You just ruined on my parents' anniversary, Maya. Everyone is freaking out. You need to fix this immediately. Linda. Marcus, this is incredibly disappointing. We need to speak. Call me as soon as you get this. Jessica. Are you serious right now? You just humiliated our entire family. Hope you're proud of yourself. Maya's brother James. Dude, whatever's going on between you and Maya, you don't drag the whole family into it publicly. Not cool. The only person who didn't call or text was David. That felt meaningful, though I wasn't quite sure how. I read through the messages twice, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, trying to construct a response that didn't sound either defensive or apologetic. Trying to figure out what there even was to say when you've finally said the thing you've been swallowing for years and there's no unsaying it. Some things once spoken can't be taken back. Like toothpaste squeezed from a tube, like eggs unscrambled, like trust broken so thoroughly that the pieces don't fit together anymore, no matter how carefully you try to reassemble them. Around 10 p.m., I heard a key scraping in our apartment door. Maya burst in like a weather system, still wearing that green dress, her makeup slightly smeared, her hair disheveled in a way that suggested she'd been running her hands through it compulsively. She'd been crying. That much was obvious from the mascara tracks and the redness around her eyes. Part of me wanted to care about that. Part of me remembered loving this woman enough to sign away $156,000 without really questioning it. Part of me still loved her, probably. In that complicated way you can love someone while also recognizing they've been slowly poisoning you. Are you out of your mind? No hello, no preamble, just straight to accusation. Do you have any idea what you just did? I was still by the window, now on my second beer. I made a comment on an Instagram post. Seemed pretty straightforward. Don't, her voice cracked. Don't be cute about this. You publicly humiliated my family. You made my parents' 35th anniversary about you and your grievances. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Embarrassing for whom? For everyone. Jessica was mortified. My mother couldn't stop crying. My father... She stopped, something flickering across her face. My father had to leave his own party because guests were asking questions. Questions, Marcus. About what you meant. About our finances. About why my husband wasn't at the celebration in the first place. All good questions, I said quietly. Maybe you should have had answers for them. I can't believe you're acting like this is my fault. She moved further into the apartment, dropping her purse with enough force to make a statement. You're the one who decided to have a public meltdown on social media. You're the one who threw our private business out there for everyone to see. You're the one who's acting like some kind of vindictive child who didn't get his way. Private business, I repeated, tasting the words. Is that what we're calling it? Our private business, where I've paid $156,000 into your family's finances while being told I'm not family enough to attend a party? Her face went pale. You're exaggerating. Am I? I set down my beer with careful deliberation. Should we pull up the bank statements, the mortgage documents, the property tax records? Because I've got them all saved, Maya. Every single transaction, every payment, every loan that was supposed to be temporary but somehow became permanent. Those were emergencies. Those were choices, I interrupted. Choices your family made to maintain a lifestyle they can't actually afford. Choices you supported, even when it meant treating your husband like an ATM instead of a partner. That's not fair, isn't it? I moved away from the window, needing to be closer to see her face when I said this. The mortgage refinance, your father said it was temporary. That was 3.5 years ago, Maya. The property taxes, you promised your parents would start paying them back next quarter for 42 months straight. The loans, the emergencies, the constant asks for just a little help that never got repaid. None of that was fair to me. But I did it anyway because I was told I was family. You are family. Then why wasn't I at the party today? My voice came out louder than I'd intended, surprising both of us. Why did your sister post family only, like it was the most natural thing in the world to exclude me? Why have I spent 4 years being told I'm family while simultaneously being treated like I'm not quite family enough? Tears were running down her face now, but they didn't move me the way they used to. I'd seen her cry before, over movies, over work stress, over family drama that never seemed to actually resolve. But this felt different. This felt like crying because she'd been caught, not because she was hurt. What do you want from me? She asked, and there was something like desperation in her voice. Do you want me to apologize? Fine. I'm sorry you felt excluded. I'm sorry the caption hurt your feelings. I'm sorry you found out about the guest list the way you did. Is that enough? No. The word hung in the air between us, simple and final. No, I repeated, because you're not actually sorry about excluding me. You're sorry I made a scene about being excluded. You're sorry your family has to face consequences for how they've treated me. You're sorry the comfortable arrangement where I paid for everything while asking for nothing in return has been disrupted. But you're not sorry for the actual problem. What problem? But her voice wavered, like she knew exactly what problem, but was hoping I wouldn't say it out loud. The problem where you've spent 4 years choosing your parents over me, choosing their financial stability over our financial future, choosing their comfort over my dignity, choosing to maintain their approval rather than standing up for your husband when he was being used. That's not, she stopped, started again. My family loves you. Your family loves what I provide. There's a difference. I moved to the couch, suddenly exhausted. And maybe you do too. Love what I provide instead of who I am. How can you say that? She was crying harder now, her voice breaking on every word. I married you. I chose you. I love you. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you married me and then spent 4 years making sure I understood my place in the hierarchy. And that place is apparently somewhere below immediate family and slightly above close family friend. Good enough to bankroll the lifestyle, not good enough to be in the photos. One party, Marcus. One party where they wanted to keep things small, and you're acting like it's this massive betrayal. It is a massive betrayal. I was standing again, unable to sit still with this much anger coursing through me. Not because of the party itself, but because of what it represents. Because it's the culmination of 4 years of being told I matter while being shown I don't. 4 years of funding their lives while being excluded from their celebrations. 4 years of you choosing them over me every single time it mattered. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. Maya sank onto the couch I'd just vacated, her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Part of me, the part that still remembered our wedding, our honeymoon, the early days when we'd stayed up all night talking about the life we'd build together, wanted to go to her, wanted to make this better, Wanted to fall back into the familiar pattern of apologizing for being difficult, of smoothing everything over, of making myself smaller so everyone else could be more comfortable. But I couldn't. That part of me was too exhausted, too depleted, too done with being the only one who bent. I need you to call my mother, Maya said finally, her voice muffled by her hands. She's beside herself. You need to apologize and explain that you didn't mean what that comment implied. But I did mean it. Her head snapped up. Marcus, I meant every word. I'm done being the family bank while being treated like I'm not part of the family. So, congratulations to everyone. The mortgage and the taxes are all theirs now. I'll be calling a lawyer Monday morning about getting my name off those documents. Her eyes went wide with something that looked like panic. You can't do that. The house, if you remove yourself, they'll have to refinance again. Their credit can't handle that right now. The bank might what? Foreclose on a property they can't actually afford? Force them to downsize to something within their actual means? I shook my head. Maya, those are family problems. And according to today's very clear messaging, I'm not family. Stop saying that. Her voice cracked with frustration on, stop twisting everything. My parents adore you. Jessica loves you. We all love me as long as I'm useful, I finished. Love me as long as I'm paying the bills and not asking for respect. Love me as long as I stay in my lane and don't expect to be treated like an actual member of the family I've been financially supporting. But the second I want more, want inclusion, want consideration, want to matter, then suddenly I'm being difficult. I'm making things awkward. I'm not understanding how things work. It was one party. It was a choice. I heard my voice echo off the apartment walls. A choice that made it crystal clear where I stand. And you're the one who made it, Maya. Not your parents, not Jessica. You. You agreed when they said blood family only. You got dressed in that beautiful green dress and you went to that party and you smiled for that photo and you let your sister post family only, like it was perfectly reasonable to exclude your husband from a major family celebration. What was I supposed to do? She asked, and now there was anger mixing with the tears. They're my parents. It's their anniversary. I couldn't just refuse to go because they wanted to keep the guest list limited. You could have said no. You could have said, if my husband isn't included, I'm not coming. You could have stood up for us, for our marriage, for the basic principle that we're supposed to be a unit. But you didn't. You chose them, just like you've been choosing them over me for 4 years. Every time there's been a conflict between what they want and what we need. The silence that fell then was different, heavier, more final. Like we'd finally said the things that had been lurking under every conversation for months. And now that they were out in the open, there was no pretending they didn't exist. Maya stood up slowly, grabbing her purse, her movements mechanical. I need to leave. I can't have this conversation right now. Where are you going? Back to my parents. Someone needs to deal with the aftermath of what you did. Someone needs to calm my mother down and help my father understand that we're not actually going to financially ruin them out of spite. We're not financially ruining anyone, I said quietly, but I'm just done being financially ruined myself for people who don't respect me. She stopped at the door, hand on the knob, and turned back. You're being dramatic. Nobody's being ruined. You're upset because your feelings got hurt, and now you're trying to blow up everyone's life because of it. My marriage was already blown up, Maya. I just didn't realize it until I saw that photo, until I saw how happy you all looked without me there, until I read the words family only and understood that after 4 years, after $156,000, I'm still on the outside looking in. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, wanted to tell me I was wrong, wanted to make this my fault somehow. But something in my expression must have stopped her because she just shook her head and left, letting the door close with a sound that felt like punctuation on something I couldn't quite name yet. And I was alone again, in an apartment that felt more like mine than ours now, with 30 missed calls on my phone and a marriage that was possibly over, and a truth that had finally been spoken after being swallowed for far, far too long. I picked up my beer. It was warm now, but I finished it anyway. Outside my window, the city lights burned like promises nobody really keeps. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't quiet my mind enough to even try. Around midnight, I opened my laptop and started pulling up documents. Bank statements going back 4 years. the original mortgage on the Chen house, then the refinancing paperwork I'd signed in David's study while he'd talked about family and trust and how much it meant to them that I was willing to help. The property tax bills, auto drafted from my account, on a schedule I'd set up myself because it was easier for everyone. Easier for whom? I'd never actually totaled everything before. I'd known it was significant, had felt the impact on our savings, had occasionally wondered if maybe I was being too generous. But I'd never sat down and added every payment, every loan, every dinner I'd paid for because, let me get this, you got the last one, had become expected rather than appreciated. The spreadsheet I created at 2:47 a.m. told a story I'd been refusing to see. 156,138. $156,438. I stared at that number until it stopped looking like numbers and started looking like years of my life. Like opportunities I'd passed up because we couldn't afford it, while simultaneously funding renovations on someone else's house. Like the down payment on the home Maya and I kept saying we'd buy someday when we're in a better position financially. We'd never be in a better position financially as long as her family was treating my bank account like a public utility. The worst part wasn't even the money, though. It was the realization that crystallized somewhere between the mortgage documents and the loan records, somewhere in the cold mathematics of 4 years of being used. They'd never planned to pay me back. How did I know? Because in 4 years, despite countless promises, despite David's firm handshakes and Linda's tearful gratitude, despite Maya's repeated assurances that they'll start paying you back next quarter, they're just waiting for some things to settle. Not $1 had been repaid. Not one. And you don't forget that kind of debt. You don't accidentally overlook a six-figure obligation when you're planning a 35th anniversary party with catering and live music. You don't forget when you're renovating your kitchen or buying a new car or taking family vacations to places I'd only seen in magazines. You don't forget. You just hope the person you owe will stop asking, will stop keeping track, will accept their role as the family wallet and stop expecting to be treated like family themselves. And I had stopped asking, hadn't I? Somewhere around month 18, I'd stopped bringing up repayment, stopped treating the money like loans, and started treating it like, what? Tribute? Payment for acceptance? The price of admission to a club that still wouldn't let me through the door? My phone buzzed with a text. Maya, unable to sleep either, apparently. Maya, are you really going to destroy everything over this? I stared at that message for a long time. Destroy everything. As if I was the destructive force here. As if I was the one who'd spent 4 years taking and taking while giving nothing back but empty promises and conditional acceptance. Me. I'm not destroying anything, I'm just finally stopping the destruction of myself. Maya. That doesn't even make sense. You're being cryptic and dramatic. Me. 156, 489. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Maya. What? Me. That's how much I've put into your family's finances over 4 years, mortgage, taxes, loans. I did the math tonight. Figured you should know the price tag on excluding me from family events. The dots appeared and stayed for almost a minute before her response came through. Maya, you can't put a price on family, me. Apparently I can. It's $156,438. That's what it costs to learn. I'm not actually family, just a funding source, Maya. This is unbelievable. My mother is crying herself to sleep because of you. My father's talking about selling the house. Jessica won't stop calling me, asking what we're going to do. And you're sitting there with a calculator trying to nickel and dime everything like some kind of accountant. Me. I am an engineer. Numbers are kind of my thing. And these numbers tell a pretty clear story about how your family sees me. Maya. We love you. Me. You love what I provide. That's not the same thing. She didn't respond after that. The dots appeared and disappeared several times, but no message ever came through. I closed my laptop and moved back to the window, watching the city transition from late night to early morning, watching the sky shift from black to gray to that pale pre-dawn blue. Somewhere out there, the Chen family was probably having emergency meetings about damage control. Somewhere, Maya was probably fielding calls from relatives who'd seen my comment before the post was deleted. Somewhere, people who'd been calling me family for 4 years were probably discussing what a monster I was for daring to speak the truth they'd all been carefully avoiding. But here, in my apartment, in the space that was feeling more singular than plural with each passing hour. I felt something that might have been peace, or maybe it was just exhaustion that looked like peace. Sometimes those are hard to tell apart. Sunday morning arrived with rain, the kind of steady gray rain that makes everything look like it's being filmed through a dirty window. I dozed off around 6 a.m., more from depletion than actual tiredness, and woke to 15 new text messages, 6 voicemails, and 1 email from Linda's personal account. The email was the most interesting. Long, formal, and the way people get when they're trying to maintain authority while being desperate, with a subject line that read, "Unnecessary conversation." Dear Marcus, I'm writing because the phone calls have proven unsuccessful, and I believe this situation requires immediate attention without the complications of real-time emotion. I want to start by saying how deeply hurt I am by your actions yesterday evening. What should have been a beautiful celebration of 35 years of marriage was completely overshadowed by your comment, which I can only characterize as vindictive and deliberately hurtful. Jessica spent weeks planning that party, and she was devastated to have to delete her post because of the chaos you created. Many guests were asking questions, making assumptions about our family's private matters. It was humiliating. I understand you may have felt excluded from yesterday's gathering, but surely you can understand that every family is entitled to have intimate celebrations with their children and grandchildren. It was never our intention to hurt you. We simply wanted an evening with our immediate descendants to mark this milestone. Surely you can understand that. However, what I cannot understand, what I find deeply troubling, is your implication about the mortgage and property taxes. Marcus, you signed those documents of your own free will. Nobody forced you. You offered to help during a difficult time, and we were grateful. To now suggest you're going to withdraw support or try to remove yourself from those obligations strikes me as not only irresponsible, but genuinely cruel. This house isn't just a building. It's where I raised my children, where David proposed to me, where Maya took her first steps. It's filled with memories and history and love that you, frankly, couldn't possibly understand as someone who joined this family only 4 years ago. The thought that you would jeopardize that because you felt slighted over one guest list is, I'm sorry to say this, but it's concerning. It makes me question your character in ways I never have before. I'm asking you, begging you, really, to reconsider, to be reasonable, to remember that family means sometimes putting others' needs before your own, to understand that being part of a family requires sacrifice and compromise. Maya is devastated. She's barely stopped crying. Her father and I are genuinely worried about her and about your marriage, about what all of this means for her future. Please call me. We need to resolve this like adults before this situation becomes even more complicated. With concern, Linda. I read it 4 times, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest with each reading. The masterful manipulation of it, the guilt tripping, the way she'd positioned herself as the victim while simultaneously dismissing my feelings. The suggestion that my response to being excluded was somehow more problematic than the exclusion itself. And it would have worked. 3 days ago, it absolutely would have worked. I would have felt guilty, would have called her, would have apologized for causing disruption, would have assured her that, of course, I'd continue the financial support, that it was just a moment of hurt feelings spiraling out of control. But something fundamental had shifted in me yesterday. Something had broken, or maybe healed, depending on how you looked at it. I opened a new email and started typing. Linda, thank you for your email. I appreciate you taking the time to express your perspective so thoroughly. You're correct that I signed those documents of my own free will. I did so because I was repeatedly told I was family, that family helps family, and that this was a temporary situation that would be resolved as soon as possible. That was 4 years ago. I've contributed over $156,000 to your family's finances. Not once in those 4 years has even a dollar been repaid, nor has anyone suggested a timeline for beginning repayment. I understand you see this as me being vindictive over one party. I see it as the culmination of 4 years of being treated like a checkbook rather than a family member, and the party was simply the moment when that reality became impossible to ignore. You say every family is entitled to intimate celebrations. I agree. But I also believe every person is entitled to dignity, to respect, and to not being used. For 4 years, I've been useful to your family. But yesterday made it very clear that useful isn't the same as valued. You mentioned that your house is filled with memories and love and history. I'm sure that's true, but it's also filled with financial obligations that you've transferred to me while simultaneously deciding I'm not family enough to be included in family milestones. That contradiction is no longer sustainable. I will be consulting with an attorney this week about the mortgage and tax documents. I will also be establishing clear boundaries around any future financial contributions to the family. This isn't about revenge or punishment. This is about self preservation and finally establishing limits I should have established 4 years ago. I'm sorry. This is painful for you and your family. I genuinely am. But I'm done apologizing for finally standing up for myself, Marcus. I hit send before I could second guess myself. Then I forwarded the entire email chain to my personal backup account, along with copies of all the financial documents I'd compiled during my sleepless night. Evidence, documentation, protection, because I had a feeling this was going to get uglier before it got better. The rain kept falling. My phone kept buzzing with messages I wasn't ready to answer. And somewhere across the city, Maya was probably showing that email to her family, probably preparing for the next wave of pressure and guilt and attempts to make me the villain in a story where I'd been the victim for years. But I was done being the victim, done being the checkbook, done being family when it was convenient and excluded when it wasn't. I was done. Monday morning, I took a personal day from work and drove to see Thomas Brennan, a family law attorney I'd met at a professional networking event about 2 years ago. We'd exchanged business cards, had one of those pleasant but forgettable conversations about specializations and interesting cases, and I'd filed his card in my desk thinking I'd never need it. Funny how life works. His office was in one of those converted historic buildings downtown, all exposed brick and modern furniture that screamed successful but approachable. I'd called first thing when they opened, and his assistant had somehow found space in his schedule for an 11 a.m. appointment, which either meant Monday mornings were slow or the desperation in my voice had been more apparent than I thought. Thomas himself was early 50s, with the kind of face that made you trust him instinctively, or maybe that was just good marketing. He listened to my entire story without interrupting, taking notes in neat handwriting that probably cost extra on his billable hours. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. "How attached are you to this marriage?" he asked bluntly. The question hit harder than I'd expected. "I don't know anymore. 4 days ago, I would have said extremely. Now I'm not sure there's a marriage left to be attached to." He nodded like this was exactly the answer he'd anticipated. "Here's the situation, Marcus. The financial entanglements you've described are going to be complicated to unwind, but they're not impossible. The mortgage refinance is the biggest concern because you're on both the deed and the note, which means you have both legal obligation and legal rights. Can I get my name removed? Possibly, but not easily. The bank would need to agree to release you from the mortgage, which they're unlikely to do unless the remaining parties can qualify on their own credit and income. From what you've told me about their financial situation, that seems unlikely." He flipped through his notes. "However, you could potentially force a sale of the property to recover your investment." Force a sale? If you're a legal owner, which you are, you have the right to petition for partition, essentially forcing the property to be sold so you can receive your share of the equity. It's usually a nuclear option, but given the amount you've contributed with zero repayment, it might be necessary to protect yourself. I thought about that. Thought about the Chen family home being sold. Thought about Linda and David having to pack up all those memories she'd written about so emotionally. Thought about how I'd become the villain in every family story for the rest of their lives. Then I thought about $156,438 and the words family only, and the way Maya had looked at me last night like I was being unreasonable for wanting basic respect. And what about the other money? The property taxes I've been paying, the loans? Thomas made a face that told me the answer before he spoke. Much harder to recover without documentation. Do you have promissory notes? Written loan agreements? Anything that explicitly establishes these were loans rather than gifts? Just text messages and emails discussing repayment. Nothing formal. That's something, at least. We can potentially argue there was an implied contract, an expectation of repayment based on those communications. But it's going to be harder to prove, especially for the property taxes, since you were paying those on a property you partially own. which could be argued as you fulfilling your ownership obligations. Even though I was told they were temporary payments until they got back on their feet, supposed to be is hard to prove in court without contemporaneous documentation. He leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against his notepad. Here's my advice, Marcus. Before we talk about litigation, which is going to be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally brutal for everyone involved, you need to decide about your marriage. Why does that matter? Because everything changes depending on whether you're trying to save this relationship or end it. If you're trying to save it, we need to approach this carefully, establish firm boundaries without burning every bridge, maybe bring in a financial mediator alongside a marriage counselor. If you're ending it, we go aggressive, document everything, file for divorce, use the financial entanglements as leverage in the settlement, potentially force the sale if necessary to protect your assets. I sat with that for a moment. Save or end, repair or demolish, hope or acceptance. I don't know yet, I said finally. I need to talk to Maya, actually talk to her, not through her family, not in the middle of crisis management. I need to understand if she even sees this as a problem, or if she just sees me as the problem. Thomas nodded. That's fair. Take a few days. Think about what you want your life to look like a year from now, 5 years from now. Think about whether this marriage is giving you what you need or just what everyone else needs from you. He slid a folder across his desk. In the meantime, I'm going to draft a preliminary letter to the Chens regarding the financial arrangements. Nothing aggressive, just establishing on record that you consider these to be loans requiring repayment, that you expect to discuss repayment terms, and that you're reserving all legal options. It creates a paper trail and starts the clock on any future litigation. Will that help? It'll protect you. And right now, Marcus, you need protection. Because one thing I've learned in 25 years of family law, when money and family get tangled together, things get vicious. And they're about to get very vicious for you. I left his office with that folder and a retainer agreement to sign if I decided to move forward. The rain had stopped, but everything was wet and gray and somehow cleaner than it had been this morning when my phone showed missed calls from Maya, from Linda, from Jessica, one new voicemail from David, the first time he'd attempted contact since Saturday night. I listened to it in my car. His voice sounded different than I'd ever heard it. Not the confident, jovial tone he used at family dinners, but something smaller, more uncertain. Marcus, it's David. I think we need to talk. Just you and me. No Linda, no Maya, no lawyers yet if we can help it. There are things that need to be said, things you deserve to understand. I'm at my office every evening after 7. Could you come by tomorrow, maybe, please? Things I deserve to understand. That phrasing caught my attention in a way the rest of the message didn't quite. I texted him back. I can come by Tuesday evening, 7:30. His response was immediate. Thank you. I'm sorry, Marcus. You deserve better from all of us. I stared at that message for a long time. It was the first apology anyone in the family had offered. The first acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, I had a right to be hurt. It was something. Not nearly enough, but something. Tuesday evening arrived cold and clear, the kind of early spring evening that promises warmth eventually, but hasn't quite delivered yet. I sat in my car outside David Chen's medical practice at 7:25, watching the windows glow with warm light, watching shadows move past blinds. This practice, this building, this man, the source of so much of the financial emergency that had led me to sign away over $150,000 over 4 years. Except Robert had implied there was more to that story, had said there were things I deserved to understand. I got out of the car at exactly 7:30. David opened the door before I could knock, like he'd been watching for me. He looked older than he had on Saturday, or maybe I was just seeing him more clearly now. Seeing the weight he carried, the cracks in the successful doctor facade. Marcus, thank you for coming. He stepped back to let me in. Linda's at a book club thing. Maya's staying with friends. I thought it would be better if we talked alone. I followed him through the empty waiting room to his private office, a space I'd been in exactly once before, when he'd asked me to sign the refinancing papers. The same leather chairs, the same mahogany desk, the same framed photos of the Chen family looking happy and successful and like they had their shit together. He poured 2 glasses of scotch without asking, expensive scotch that probably cost more than most people's monthly grocery bill, and handed one to me before sitting heavily in his chair. I've been sitting in this office for 3 days trying to figure out how to have this conversation, he began, trying to find the words that would explain, justify, make you understand. But Linda keeps saying you're being unreasonable, that you're overreacting, that you need to apologize and move past this. And she's wrong. That surprised me. She is? Completely wrong. You were right about all of it, about the money, about being used, about not being treated like family despite being told you were. He took a long drink. I've been lying to you, Marcus. We all have. Not with words necessarily, but with actions and omissions and this careful dance of taking while convincing everyone, including ourselves, that it was all justified. He set down his glass and looked at me with something that might have been shame. We were never going to pay you back. The words hung there, confirmation of what I'd already suspected, but hadn't quite let myself fully believe. Why? My voice came out rougher than I'd intended. Why string me along with promises if you never intended to honor them? Because you might have said no otherwise, he said simply. Because if we'd said we need you to give us 150,000 with no expectation of repayment, you would have realized how much we were asking. But if we framed it as loans, as temporary help, as just getting through a rough patch, that was easier to agree to. Each individual ask seemed reasonable. It was only when you added them all up that the picture became clear. You boiled the frog, I said quietly. Exactly. Slow enough that you didn't jump out until you were already cooked. He picked up his glass again, stared into it like it held answers. And the worst part? The practice was never in real trouble, not the way we implied. My hand tightened on my own glass. What? We were overextended, yes, spending more than we should have been. But we weren't facing bankruptcy or losing the house or any of the dramatic scenarios Linda suggested. We just wanted to maintain our lifestyle without making sacrifices. So the refinance was about freeing up cash flow so we could keep living the way we wanted to live. The renovations, the cars, the family trips, keeping up with the Patels and the Wongs and everyone else in that neighborhood who was doing the same thing, leveraging everything to maintain an image. He flinched. You were the solution to our cash flow problem. A son-in-law with excellent credit, stable income, and, Linda's words, no family of his own to complain to about it. The scotch in my glass suddenly felt heavy. The calculation of it, the deliberateness, the way they'd assessed me not as family, but as a resource. Did Maya know? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. David's silence was answer enough, but I pushed. Tell me, did my wife know you were using me? That there was never going to be repayment? He met my eyes and I saw resignation there, defeat. Not at first. When we initially approached you about the refinance, she genuinely believed it was temporary. But over time, as the repayments never materialized, as we kept asking for more, he paused. Yes, she knew. And she didn't stop it because stopping it would have meant choosing between her husband and her family. And it was easier to just not choose, to let things continue as they were, to benefit from your generosity while pretending everything was fine. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the arm of my chair, forcing myself to breathe. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm 62 years old, Marcus. I'm exhausted. I'm sick of the person I've become. I looked at that Instagram post Saturday night before you commented, before everything exploded, and I felt physically ill. Ill at what we've done to you. Ill at the family we've become. Ill at the way we've treated someone who gave us everything and asked for nothing but basic inclusion. He stood, moved to the window overlooking the parking lot. My father taught me that a man's worth is measured by his integrity, by keeping his word, by treating people fairly. And I've failed at all of those things. I've let my family become users, exploiters, people who take advantage of kindness and call it their due. So why let it happen? Why not stop it before it got this far? Because you made it so easy. He said it without malice, just stated fact. You kept saying yes. You kept being understanding. You kept putting everyone else first. And I took advantage of that. We took your decency and turned it into weakness. And I hate myself for it. The silence that followed was heavy with 4 years of accumulated betrayal. I can't give you your money back, David said finally. Not all at once. Probably not ever, realistically. Our finances are a disaster. We're living on credit and investment returns that might not be there next year. But I can give you the truth. And I can tell you that you're right to be angry, right to protect yourself, right to refuse to keep funding a family that doesn't respect you. What does Linda think about you telling me all this? He laughed bitterly. Linda doesn't know I'm telling you this. She'd be furious if she did. She still thinks we can smooth this over, convince you to keep things as they were, make you feel guilty enough to back down. She doesn't understand that some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And Maya? Maya is scared. Scared of losing you, scared of her family's financial situation being exposed, scared of having to actually choose. She's been calling me every few hours asking what she should do, and I keep telling her the same thing, that she needs to figure out what matters more, you or us, her marriage or her family, because she can't keep trying to have both while treating you like you're optional. I stood, unable to sit still anymore. I talked to a lawyer yesterday. I figured you would. What did he say? That I could force a sale of the house? That I have legal rights as someone on the mortgage and deed? That I could potentially recover some of my losses, though not all? David nodded slowly, unsurprised. That's fair, more than fair, honestly, and maybe, he paused, maybe it would be good for us. Force us to live within our actual means instead of this fantasy we've been maintaining. This house has been as much a prison as a home. Linda wouldn't see it that way. No, she'd see it as the ultimate betrayal. Proof that you were never really family because real family wouldn't tear apart the home where her children were raised. He turned from the window. But Marcus, we're the ones who betrayed family principles, not you. We took your generosity and warped it into obligation. We took your love for Maya and used it as leverage. We took your desire to belong and turned it into a weapon. What should I do? The question came out before I could stop it. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you what I would do. He moved back to his desk, pulled out a folder from the bottom drawer. I'd protect myself. I'd document everything. I'd set firm boundaries. And I'd make Maya choose, really choose, whether she wants to be married to you or married to her family's financial interests. He handed me the folder. Inside were documents I'd never seen. Bank statements showing the Chen family's actual financial position 4 years ago, proving they weren't facing foreclosure. Records of expenditures showing where my money had really gone. Email exchanges between Linda and David discussing how to approach me for various loans, including phrases like, don't make it sound like he has a choice, and play up the emergency angle. What is this? Everything you'd need to prove what I just told you, evidence of our financial situation then and now. Records showing the money you provided for emergencies funded luxuries instead. Documentation that would destroy any claim we might make, that you knew these were gifts rather than loans. Why are you giving me this? This undermines your entire family. Your wife could never explain this away. Because it's the right thing to do. Because I'm tired of lying. Because maybe if I do one honest thing, one decent thing, I can sleep at night again. His voice cracked. And because you deserve justice, Marcus. You deserve the truth and the tools to protect yourself. Even if, especially if, that protection requires destroying the comfortable fiction we've been living in. I stared at the folder, at the evidence of betrayal documented in bank statements and emails, at proof that my instincts had been right all along, that I wasn't crazy or oversensitive or making something out of nothing. Thank you, I said finally, for this, for the truth, for not trying to convince me I'm imagining things. You're not imagining anything. You're actually remarkably calm, all things considered. If someone had done to me what we did to you. He shook his head. That Instagram comment was far kinder than what I would have posted. I almost laughed despite everything. It caused enough chaos. It exposed the truth. That's not the same as causing chaos. That's clearing away lies so reality has room to exist. He walked me to the door of his office. What happens now? I don't know. I need to talk to Maya, really talk without her family coaching her responses. I need to understand if she's capable of choosing our marriage or if 4 years of patterns are too ingrained to change. And if she can't, then I walk away. With or without recovering my money, with or without the house being sold, I walk away. Because I finally understand that some prices are too high, even for love. I left him standing in his office doorway, in his successful practice that wasn't really successful, in a life that looked perfect from the outside but was rotting from within. The folder felt heavy in my hands, heavy with truth and evidence and the weight of 4 years of careful manipulation finally exposed to light. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Dad said you went to see him. Can we talk, please? Me. Tomorrow evening, our apartment, just us. Maya. Okay, I love you. I stared at that last message for a long time, trying to figure out if I believed it, trying to remember what loving her felt like before everything got so complicated, trying to imagine a future where we recovered from this, where trust could be rebuilt, where we could be actual partners instead of actors in a play directed by her family. I couldn't quite picture it. But I texted back anyway, tomorrow, 7 p.m., because maybe impossible things sometimes happen. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to let go yet. Maya arrived at 6:55 p.m. on Wednesday, 5 minutes early for our scheduled conversation. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing yoga pants and one of my old sweatshirts. This was Maya at her most vulnerable, stripped of the polished exterior she maintained for the world. Hi, she said softly, standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed inside anymore. Come in. I stepped back, letting her enter the apartment that had been hers until 4 days ago, but now felt like contested territory. And we sat on opposite ends of the couch, not hostile exactly, but carefully distant. The folder from David sat on the coffee table between us, visible, but not yet mentioned. I've been staying at Monica's, Maya said, naming her college friend. I didn't want to be at my parents' house. The energy there is intense. I imagine. My mother hasn't stopped talking about you, about what you did, about how we need to manage this situation. She used air quotes, and there was something in her voice that might have been resentment. She has this whole plan about how we can fix this, how you can apologize. We can establish that the money was always meant as gifts, how we can smooth everything over and get back to normal. Back to normal, I repeated. And what do you think about that plan? I think she stopped, started again. I think normal was broken, Marcus. I just didn't want to see how broken it was until you made it impossible to ignore. That was promising, maybe. Your father told me the truth, I said, gesturing to the folder, about the finances, about how you were never in real trouble 4 years ago, about how the repayment was never going to happen, about how my role in this family was always more about utility than belonging. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I know. He called me yesterday, told me what he'd told you. My mother's furious with him. They've been fighting for 2 days straight. Did you know from the beginning? No. She shook her head emphatically. I swear, Marcus, when they first asked you about the refinance, I genuinely thought it was temporary. I believed my father when he said the practice was in trouble. I believed my mother when she promised they'd start paying you back as soon as things stabilized. When did you figure out it was a lie? She looked away, shame coloring her face. About 18 months ago. I was helping my mom with some paperwork, and I saw bank statements, saw that they'd taken a vacation to Hawaii, saw that she'd bought new furniture, saw expenditures that didn't match the story about them being in financial crisis. And you didn't tell me. I didn't want to believe it. I convinced myself there must be explanations, that maybe the vacation was a medical conference, or the furniture was a necessity, or she stopped, wiping her eyes. But then more time passed, and more loans, and you kept being so understanding, so generous, so willing to help. And I let it continue because confronting it would mean choosing between you and them. And I was too much of a coward to choose until Saturday. Until Saturday when I chose them again, like I've been choosing them over you for 18 months, maybe longer. She turned to face me fully. That party, they didn't just want to keep it small, Marcus. You were specifically excluded. My mother said it would be awkward having you there. Jessica agreed, and her voice broke. I should have fought for you. Should have said if you weren't welcome, I wasn't coming. Should have stood up for my husband, for our marriage, for basic decency, but I didn't. I put on that green dress and I went to that party and I smiled for that photo and I let Jessica post that caption like it was perfectly normal to exclude you. Why? Because it's what I've always done. Since I was a kid, I've always been the peacekeeper, the one who smooths things over, the one who makes sure everyone's happy. And somewhere along the way, I decided that everyone's happiness mattered more than yours, more than mine, more than our marriage. She was crying freely now, and part of me wanted to comfort her. But a larger part needed to hear this, needed to understand whether she was crying because she'd been caught or because she'd finally understood. Dr. Morrison says I'm enmeshed, Maya continued. That's the clinical term. I'm so tangled up in my family that I can't differentiate between what they want and what I want, between their needs and my marriage, between being a good daughter and being a good wife. You're in therapy? Started Monday, emergency session, then another one yesterday. She's helping me understand patterns I've been in my whole life, patterns of sacrificing myself, sacrificing us, to maintain family harmony that was never really harmonic to begin with. I sat with that for a moment. What does she say about us? About whether we can recover from this? She says it depends on whether I'm willing to do the work, whether I'm capable of putting you first instead of always putting my family first, whether I can establish boundaries and maintain them even when they push back, and they will push back, Marcus. They're pushing back now. My mother calls me 10 times a day. Jessica sends me articles about how setting boundaries with family is selfish. My brother keeps saying I'm being manipulated by you, that I'm abandoning everyone who actually loves me. What do you tell them? I tell them I'm trying to save my marriage, that I'm trying to become the partner you deserve 4 years ago, that she took a shaky breath, that if loving me means using my husband, then maybe their love is conditional, and I need to accept that. That must be hard to say. It's the hardest thing I've ever said. Because accepting that my family's love might be conditional means accepting that the foundation I built my whole life on is unstable. That the people who are supposed to love me unconditionally actually only love me when I'm fulfilling a role they've assigned. I thought about that. About Linda's email calling me cruel for protecting myself. About Jessica's mortification over being publicly caught using me. About the way the entire family had closed ranks not to support Maya, but to pressure her into maintaining the status quo. What do you want, Maya? Not what your family wants. Not what your therapist says you should want. What do you actually want? She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since she'd arrived. I want my marriage. I want you. I want to build a life with you that isn't funded by guilt or obligation or sacrificing your dignity for my family's comfort. I want, she stopped. More tears. I want us to be partners, real partners. The kind who choose each other first, who protect each other, who don't let anyone, not even family, treat each other like they're expendable. Can you do that? Can you actually choose me over them when it matters? I don't know, she said, and the honesty of it was almost more hopeful than confidence would have been. I want to, I'm going to try, but Marcus, I've spent 28 years being the dutiful daughter, 4 years being the mediator between you and them. I don't know if I can just flip a switch and become someone different. I'm not asking you to become someone different. I'm asking you to become yourself. The Maya who doesn't need her family's approval to feel worthwhile. The Maya who can set boundaries without apologizing for them. The Maya who can stand next to me at parties because she wants to, not because she's obligated to. How do I do that? Therapy, apparently. Time, practice, and probably. I gestured to the folder on the table, probably accepting some really painful truths about your family. She picked up the folder, opened it, started reading. I watched her face change as she processed what she was seeing, the evidence of deliberate manipulation, of calculated exploitation, of lies her parents had told not just to me but to her. Oh my God, she whispered. This email. Mom talking about making sure you feel like you don't have a choice about the money. Dad agreeing that they should leverage the family relationship while he still values it. She looked up at me, horror on her face. They planned this. They actually sat down and planned how to use you. Yeah, and she clutched the papers. I enabled it. Even after I knew something was wrong, I enabled it by staying silent, by choosing not to see, by protecting them instead of you. Yes. How can you even look at me? Her voice was raw. How can you sit here and not hate me for what I let happen to you? Because I don't think you fully understood what was happening. I think you were caught between two impossible positions and you made the wrong choice repeatedly, but not because you're malicious, because you're conflict avoidant and enmeshed, and you've never learned how to disappoint the people you love. That's not an excuse. No. But it's an explanation. And Maya, I moved closer but didn't quite touch her. If you're serious about changing, about choosing differently, about building something real with me instead of maintaining something broken with them, then we have a chance. Not an easy chance, not a guaranteed chance, but a chance. What would that look like? What do you need from me? I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app where I'd been drafting this for 2 days. These are my terms, non-negotiable. If you can't do all of these things, then we're done, and we should just start divorce proceedings now. She flinched at the word divorce, but nodded. Tell me. I read from my list. 1. We immediately stop all financial support to your family. No more mortgage payments beyond what I'm legally obligated to pay. No more property taxes, no more loans. Not one more dollar leaves our account for their benefit. 2. You send a message to your family, all of them, making it clear that our marriage is your priority, that any future disrespect or exclusion of me is disrespect and exclusion of you, that you're establishing boundaries, and those boundaries are not up for negotiation. 3. We do couples counseling, weekly minimum, for at least 6 months, non-negotiable. 4. Full financial transparency. I get access to all your accounts, all your communications with your family about money, everything. No more secrets. 5. When they push back, and they will push back hard, you hold firm. No caving. No, just this once. No exceptions. If you can't maintain these boundaries when they're crying or angry or threatening to cut you off, then this doesn't work. I lowered my phone. Those are my terms. All or nothing, Maya. I'm done compromising. She was quiet for a long time, processing. That's a lot. My family's going to be furious. My mother will never forgive me. Jessica will probably stop speaking to me entirely. I know. I might lose them permanently. You might. Or you might discover that your relationship with them has always been conditional, and this is just making that explicit. I paused. But Maya, losing them is not the same as losing yourself. And right now, you're choosing between keeping them comfortable and finding out who you actually are outside of their expectations. She set down the folder, wiped her face, and looked at me with something that looked almost like determination underneath the fear. Okay. Okay, what? Okay to all of it. The financial boundaries, the message to my family, the counseling, the transparency, all of it. I'll do it. I'll choose you. I'll choose us. Even if it means your family cuts you off? Even then. Her voice was stronger now. Because you're right. What we had before wasn't working. It was killing you slowly, and I was helping it happen. And I won't be that person anymore. This is going to be harder than you think. I know, Dr. Morrison warned me. She said the first 3 months will be brutal, that my family will try every manipulation tactic they know, that I'll want to cave 100 times. But she also said, Maya took a breath. She said that discomfort isn't the same as wrong, that growth is supposed to feel scary, that becoming a real adult sometimes means disappointing the people who raised you. Can you do that? Can you disappoint them? For you, for us, for becoming someone I can actually respect? She reached for my hand, the first physical contact we'd had in days. Yes, I can do that. Or I'll die trying. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her, but belief required more than words in a moment of crisis. Then let's start now, I said. Pull out your phone. You're sending that message to your family right now while I'm sitting here. No time to be talked out of it. No time for your mother to craft the perfect guilt trip. No time to second guess. Her hand shook as she pulled out her phone. What should I say? Whatever you need to say to make them understand things are different now. That I'm not negotiable. That our marriage comes first. That they're going to have to accept the new reality or accept not having you in their life the way they used to. She opened a group message, added her parents and siblings, and started typing. Deleting. Typing again. Finally, she showed me the screen. Mom, Dad, Jessica, James. I'm writing because I need to say things I should have said years ago. Marcus is my husband, my partner, and my family. How he was treated on Saturday, being excluded from a major family event and having that exclusion announced publicly, was unacceptable. How he's been treated for 4 years, being used financially while not being fully respected as family, was unacceptable. I'm taking responsibility for my part in that. I should have stood up for him. I should have established boundaries years ago. I should have chosen my marriage over your comfort. I didn't. I'm sorry for that, to Marcus, not to you. Moving forward, things change. Marcus and I will not be providing financial support into the family anymore. The mortgage and taxes are your responsibility now. Any previous loans are officially documented as debts requiring repayment. we'll be expecting to discuss terms. More importantly, if Marcus isn't welcome or included in family events, then I'm not attending. He's my family first. Our marriage comes first. That's how it should have been all along. I love you all, but I love Marcus too, and I've failed him by not protecting him, by not choosing him, by enabling you to treat him as useful rather than valued. I'm correcting that now. I hope we can rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. But if not, I understand. Just know that this is my choice, my decision, my boundary. I read it 3 times. That's good. That's really good. Send it. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Once I do this, there's no going back. There's already no going back, Maya. We're just making that explicit. She took a deep breath and hit send. We sat there in tense silence, watching her phone, waiting for the inevitable explosion. It came within 90 seconds. Her phone started lighting up with calls. Linda first, then Jessica, then James. Maya silenced each one without answering. I can't talk to them tonight, she said, her voice shaking but resolute. If I answer now, they'll wear me down. They'll make me feel guilty. They'll convince me I'm being dramatic or unfair or... She stopped. I need to let them sit with it. Let them understand I'm serious. They're going to retaliate, I warned. Probably hard. Your mother's going to cry. Jessica's going to be furious. They're going to try every button they've ever installed in you. Let them try. She turned to me, and I saw something in her face I hadn't seen before. Determination overlaid with fear, but determination nonetheless. I'm done letting them control me through guilt. I'm done prioritizing their feelings over yours. I'm done being the family peacekeeper when peace requires someone being harmed. Her phone kept lighting up with calls, with text messages that were starting to pour in. Linda, Jessica, James, even some cousins and aunts who'd apparently already been looped into the drama. Maya turned off her phone entirely. I'm staying here tonight, she said, if that's okay. Not because I think everything's fixed, not because we're suddenly fine, but because I need to be with my husband while my family loses their minds. I need to practice choosing you. You can stay. Thank you. She leaned against me, and I put my arm around her. And we sat like that while somewhere across the city, her family was probably having emergency meetings, planning strategies, preparing counterattacks. But here, in our apartment, we were together. It wasn't fixed, wasn't healed, wasn't even close to okay yet. But it was honest. Finally, after 4 years, it was honest. And that was something. That was a start. 3 months later, the check arrived on a Tuesday morning in June. $500 made out to me with a memo line that read, Loan repayment 1 of 312. The signature was David's, the handwriting shaky but legible. Maya came into the kitchen as I was staring at it. Is that? First payment. Your father's establishing a repayment schedule. 312 payments. She did the math quickly. 26 years. You'll be almost 60. I'll be lucky if I see half of it repaid, I said honestly. But it's something. It's acknowledgement. It's them finally putting their money where their apologies have been. The past 3 months had been exactly as brutal as everyone had warned. Linda had alternated between cold silence and tearful phone calls. Jessica hadn't spoken to Maya at all. James had tried the reasonable approach a few times before apparently giving up. But David had been different. He'd divorced Linda in April, a decision that had shocked the entire extended family. Irreconcilable differences was the official reason, but Maya had told me the truth. David couldn't keep being married to someone who demanded he choose her comfort over his integrity. He'd sold the house in May, downsized to a small condo, started sending these checks every month without being asked. You should cash it, Maya said, watching me still holding the check like it might disappear. I will, I looked at her. This represents something, doesn't it? Not just money, but actual change. Maybe. She poured herself coffee, sitting across from me at the table in the small house we'd bought last month. Ours, fully ours, no family entanglements. Or maybe it just represents Dad trying to sleep at night. But either way, it's more than we had 3 months ago. She was different now. Not completely transformed. Trauma and therapy don't work that fast. But different in ways that mattered. She'd stood firm when Linda had shown up at her office crying. She'd maintained boundaries when Jessica had sent a series of texts calling her a traitor. She'd chosen us repeatedly, even when those choices cost her. We were in couples therapy every Thursday. She was in individual therapy every Tuesday. We'd had hard conversations about trust, about money, about what a healthy marriage looked like when you were building it from ruins. I had coffee with my dad yesterday, Maya said. I didn't mention it because I wanted to see how it went first. And? And it was good, really good. He's different now, or maybe he's just finally being authentic. We talked about his therapy, about what he's learning about himself, about the ways he enabled mom's need for control because it was easier than confronting it, about how he's trying to build relationships with his kids based on actual connection rather than obligation. How do you feel about that? Cautiously hopeful? Like maybe we can have something real now. Something that's not about maintaining appearances or meeting expectations or performing family harmony. Just a relationship between two adults who care about each other and are trying to be honest. That sounds nice. It does, doesn't it? She smiled, and it was that real smile, the one I'd fallen in love with. I never thought losing my family would feel like gaining myself. But here we are. You didn't lose all of them. You lost the dysfunctional version of them. The version that required you to be smaller, quieter, more accommodating. You're finding out who's willing to meet you where you actually are. Dr. Morrison said something similar, that real love doesn't require self-betrayal, that if keeping people in your life means abandoning yourself, then you're not really keeping them, you're just performing for them. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas Brennan, my lawyer. FYI, Chen property sold. Your name officially removed from deed and mortgage as of this morning. You're free. I showed Maya the text. She read it and I watched emotions play across her face, relief, sadness, resolution. Free, she repeated. You're finally free of being legally tied to my family's mess. We're free, I corrected. Both of us. Free to build whatever we want without being anchored to their expectations. She reached across the table, took my hand. Thank you. For what? For that Instagram comment. For finally saying what needed to be said. For forcing all of us to deal with reality instead of comfortable fiction. For loving me enough to demand better. For both of us. I looked at her, at this woman who'd hurt me and was trying to heal us, who'd chosen wrong and was learning to choose differently, who'd been raised in dysfunction and was fighting to create health. You're welcome, I said. But Maya, you're the one doing the work. I just finally stopped accepting less than I deserved. You're the one showing up to therapy, standing up to your family, choosing us every day, even when it's hard. We're both doing the work. She squeezed my hand. That's what partnership means, right? Both people showing up, both people choosing, both people trying. Yeah, I said. That's exactly what it means. We sat there in our kitchen, in our house, in the life we were building from the ruins of what had been broken, and I thought about 7 words on an Instagram post that had somehow catalyzed all of this. Congrats. Mortgage and taxes are all yours now. 7 words that had blown up my marriage so it could be rebuilt honestly. 7 words that had forced truths into light that everyone had been carefully avoiding. 7 words that had somehow become the best thing I'd ever written. Because sometimes love isn't about keeping peace. Sometimes it's about disrupting it. Sometimes it's about refusing to be comfortable in dysfunction, about demanding honesty even when that honesty burns, about standing up for yourself even when everyone else insists you should sit down. That Instagram comment hadn't saved my marriage, but it had been the catalyst. The moment I stopped swallowing hurt, stopped making myself small, stopped paying for a place in a family that saw me as an ATM rather than a person. And in the destruction that followed, Maya and I had somehow found each other again. Not the versions we'd been 4 years ago, naive and enmeshed and slowly suffocating under the weight of her family's expectations, but new versions, stronger, clearer, fiercely protective of what we were building. Hey, Marcus? Yeah? I'm glad you made that comment. Even though it was messy and public and probably not the healthiest way to set a boundary, she paused. I'm glad you finally stopped being silent. Because your silence was killing us, and neither of us was brave enough to break it. Sometimes it takes an explosion to clear the air, I said. Sometimes it does. She smiled. Ready for therapy in an hour? Ready as I'll ever be. We cleaned up breakfast together, got ready together, drove to Dr. Morrison's office together. Partners. Actually, partners. Maybe messy partners. Maybe imperfect partners. Maybe Partners who still had years of work ahead to fully heal what had been broken, but partners nonetheless. And that was everything. The notification came at 6:15 p.m. on a Saturday evening in May. I was in our backyard, the backyard of the house we'd bought with our own money, free of family entanglement, flipping burgers on a grill we'd picked out together. Maya was inside setting the table for the small dinner party we were hosting. Her father David, my sister Rachel, who'd flown in from Seattle, and our friends Josh and Maria. My phone buzzed. Instagram. Jessica Chen had posted something and tagged Maya in it. I almost didn't look, almost let it pass unexamined, let the past stay past. But curiosity, that same dangerous curiosity that had started everything 2 years ago, made me open it. It was a photo from her wedding. Jessica had gotten married last month, a small ceremony that Maya hadn't been invited to. No exclusion caption this time, just absence, noted by omission. The post was captioned, "Found my forever family. So grateful for the people who've always been there. # new beginnings, # family." No drama, no pointed remarks, just a continuation of the same pattern. Family defined narrowly, conditionally, with clear lines about who belonged and who didn't. Maya came outside, saw me looking at my phone, and immediately understood. Jessica posted something. "Yeah, wedding photos. You're not in them. I know. She uninvited me 3 months ago when I wouldn't agree to convince you to stop pursuing legal action against Mom." Maya said it calmly, like it was just a fact rather than a wound. "Dr. Morrison and I have been processing it. How do you feel?" "Sad, relieved, mostly peaceful, honestly." She came to stand next to me looking at the burgers rather than the phone. 2 years ago, that would have destroyed me, would have sent me spiraling, would have made me question every choice I'd made, would have made me want to cave, to apologize, to sacrifice whatever needed sacrificing, to get back in their good graces. And now? Now I understand that their good graces require my bad compromises, that being included in their family meant excluding myself from my own life, that I was paying for acceptance twice with my integrity, and the price was too high. She took the phone from me, glanced at the photo, handed it back. "She looks happy. I hope she is. But her happiness isn't my responsibility anymore. You're sure you're okay?" "I'm sure." She kissed me quickly. "Know what I'm not okay with? You burning those burgers. David likes his medium rare, and you're about to give him charcoal." I laughed, turned my attention back to the grill, and Maya went inside to check on the salad. Linda Chen had never apologized, had never acknowledged wrongdoing, had fought the divorce bitterly, had tried to turn David's monthly payments to me into evidence of his betrayal of family, had maintained her position that when I was the villain, that Maya had been brainwashed, that the entire situation was a tragedy of manipulation rather than a triumph of boundary setting. Jessica had sided with Linda completely. James had maintained cautious distance from everyone. Switzerland, in human form. But David kept sending checks, kept showing up for monthly dinners with Maya, kept doing the work of being an actual father rather than a performance of one. The relationship they'd built over the past 2 years was smaller than what they'd had before, more careful, but infinitely more real. "Burgers are ready," I called out. Everyone gathered in our backyard, around the table we'd bought at a flea market, and refinished ourselves. David with his new girlfriend, Patricia, confusingly also named Patricia, but a different person entirely, kind, genuine, someone who didn't need to control others to feel secure. Rachel with stories about her latest gallery opening, Josh and Maria with updates about their new baby. This was family. Not the family I'd been born into. My parents had died when I was young, leaving me with just Rachel. Not the family I'd married into and been slowly consumed by, but the family Maya and I had built deliberately, carefully, from people who chose us and whom we chose back. "Toast," David said, raising his glass. "To Marcus and Maya, to standing up for yourselves, to building something honest, to teaching an old man that it's never too late to choose integrity over comfort." We drank to that. Later, after everyone had gone home and Maya and I were cleaning up, she found me staring at my phone again. Not at Jessica's post, but at my own Instagram page, at the photo I'd posted yesterday. Maya and me in our backyard laughing at something completely unself-conscious. I'd captioned it simply, 2 years, grateful for the work, Grateful for the growth, grateful for the woman who chose us over comfortable. 73 likes, 15 comments. A small, curated list of people who genuinely cared about us rather than about what we could provide. Penny, for your thoughts? Maya asked, putting away the last of the dishes. Just thinking about how different things are. How 2 years ago, I was standing in our apartment feeling like my marriage was over, feeling like I'd lost everything by making one angry comment. And now? Now I understand that comment didn't lose anything. It cleared away what needed to be cleared. It burned down what was already rotting, so we had space to build something solid. That's very poetic for someone who claims to only understand numbers. I'm learning. You're teaching me. I pulled her close, wrapped my arms around her waist. Are you happy? I'm happy. Not perfect. We still have hard days, still have triggers, still have moments where I want to reach out to my mother or when you worry I'm going to cave to family pressure. But happy. Honestly, happy. Not performatively happy. That's new for me. Me too. We stood in our kitchen in our house, in our life that belonged to us. And I thought about 7 words that had changed everything. 7 words that people probably thought were petty or vindictive or cruel. 7 words that were actually the first honest thing I'd said in 4 years. 7 words that had somehow become the foundation for something real. Congrats. Mortgage and taxes are all yours now. Best 7 words I ever wrote. Not because they were kind or diplomatic or mature, but because they were true. And truth, even painful truth, even explosive truth, is always better than comfortable lies. Ready for bed? Maya asked. Ready. We turned off the lights, locked the doors, went upstairs to the bedroom in the house we'd bought together, with money we'd earned together, free of entanglement, free of obligation, free to be simply ourselves. And as I drifted off to sleep next to my wife, my partner, my teammate, the woman who'd done the hardest work of her life to become someone who could show up for us, I felt something that might have been peace. Or maybe it was just the absence of dysfunction. Sometimes those are the same thing.